And stop moving.
Oh, he sleep-darted him. I guess that counts. Unintentional, but I'll take it. This is an extended version of a devlog for a Lazy T Pass the Game challenge that I made with the theme of Strategy from the Shadows. There's a link in the description to the summary video, but here I go more in depth as to how my week of development went, as well as how the systems that I added actually work. I'm currently on full-time paid paternal leave, so I have a lot of baby duty on hand. But I wanted to take part in this challenge because I want some other creative outlet other than making sandcastles and singing lullabies. After putting my son to sleep, I had about solid 60 minutes of development time. At this point, I actually took the time to read the theme, Strategy from the Shadows. It had this additional line, which I kind of dislike, as interpreting the theme is part of the fun. This statement kind of makes it feel like I have to be quite literal. I downloaded the template project that Lazy T gave me with the challenge. Pro tip, you do not have to send the library folder when you're sending a Unity file. This folder is incredibly large and it gets rebuilt whenever it's missing, so just delete it or exclude it from a zip if you send a Unity file. The challenge also came with this Notion board of rules, requirements, expectations, and a way to communicate between developers. Having worked with Lazy T before, I was not surprised that he was this organized, and it's a pleasure to work with somebody who is this meticulous about organization. Looking at the template project, it's really robust and the audio implementation is almost similar to mine. So I decided to use the template project and try and save time that way, because I am kind of limited on dev time, and not spend time coding these sort of invisible features like pausing or playing audio in a simple way. For me, 5 days is maybe about 15, max 20 hours, depending on how much I crunch. The theme fit this idea that I had before of you playing as the guy in the chair, where your job is to advise the hero, tell them when the coast is clear, hack doors and such and such. I was hoping the game would be a little bit of like a multitasking, beat your best time kind of game. In a perfect world, I would want this to be a co-op multiplayer game, but that is not possible in this time frame. I began by programming a way for you to draw a route for the agent to follow. It's just a combination of raycasting to a plane to get the world position of the cursor, and if you move your cursor a certain distance away from the previous point, it will add a new point. And you can essentially control the resolution of the path by changing the required distance. If you made any kind of 3D game in Unity, this isn't a terribly difficult thing to do, so I had it working like within a couple of hours. In that time, I also added these kind of quality of life features where you can delete the last point or delete the entire path by either clicking or holding the right mouse button. Now at this point, the character who I'm calling the hero can still walk through walls, but I feel like this isn't bad progress for like 3 hours on the first day. So everything else is a problem for future me. Day 2. After a morning of playing outside with my son, I had my midday development time, which was about 75 minutes. The pathing mechanics still needed some polish, like not being able to walk through walls, or like having a threshold as to like how close to a wall you can draw the path. Again, pretty simple. Obstacles is just raycasting from the previous point to the new point, and if there's nothing in between, it's a valid point, you can add it to the list. Detecting if you're close to a wall is quite simple as well. You just do a physics query around the point, and if you don't find anything that is marked as an obstacle, then you're far enough away from a wall. And you just do both of these checks, raycast, physics query, before you add a new point to the list. And also I added the way for you to stop the hero and tell them to continue by pressing spacebar. I want the player character, which is essentially you, like behind the screen, to whisper into like a microphone, like, go, stop, coast clear. The template project's sound manager didn't have a way to play a random clip from an array of clips, nor did it have any way of accepting an array of clips. I thought for a moment as to like, should I just add this in like a quick and dirty way, or should I try to extend Lazy T's sound manager class? In the end, I decided to add this functionality because it will be useful to other devs down the line, even though I have to spend a little bit of time on it. I made a class that holds an array of clips identified by a string value, which is bad practice, but this is the way that Lazy T's sound manager works. Clips are identified with strings, so I didn't want to stray from that. And I sort of added it on top of Lazy T's implementation, so it will simply get a random clip from an array and then it will return to Lazy T's implementation of like playing clips in the world. In the afternoon, my spouse took our son to the beach, so I took a box of strawberries and got to developing. I recorded some voice lines when you as the player character tell the hero to stop or continue.
And go.
This isn't terribly important at this point, but I feel it is necessary to like communicate my intent to the next developer. Next, I started working on an enemy. First, I made the logic for seeing the player. I haven't done anything like this in a little while, so it took me some trial and error as well as looking at Unity's documentation. I was thinking about ChatGPT to write this for me, but I feel like I don't want to use generative AI for something that I'm not sure how to do. And I try to use like ChatGPT to write a script that I know how to do, so I can save time not on thinking, but I can save time on typing. And because I did figure it out myself, now I get to be proud that I did it. What was actually more difficult was getting the view cone to line up with the physical sightlines of the enemy. My version is a Unity World Space UI, and I use the radial fill option of an image texture. I had no idea how to do this, so I basically just tested formulas and numbers until something worked. And what eventually did work was this: 180 degrees minus sight angle divided by 2. Initially, I was gonna make the enemy guards walk similarly to the player, just go from point to point directly. But I thought that if I make them use Unity's nav mesh system, then that could make making patrol points slightly less error prone, as they don't have to be perfect, the enemy will simply figure it out. This also leaves the door open for some more complex behaviors, like let's say like distracting guards to go to a point on the map or something like that. At this point I started thinking, should I refactor the player character to also use the nav mesh, but I thought against it, as at least currently I don't need it. After putting my son to sleep at night, I had about 2.5 hours of dev time before bed, and I started putting together some tutorial levels, not just to teach the basics to other players, but also to future developers on the project. While fixing some bugs I had with scene loading, I realized that this is me using the template project coming to bite me in the ass. As when you make a template project for something like this, you already have to make some assumptions and decisions on the architecture of the game and how it will work. And I had some constant problems with like the game manager class constantly pausing and unpausing on scene loads. And I definitely lost some development time because I had these issues. This isn't any kind of a diss on LazyT, as the template project is really good, but if you personally have a preference of you'd like to do it some other way, then you are going to clash with the system. Day 3. In the afternoon, I only got about 30 minutes of dev time due to baking some banana bread. I added this pop-up text that I made for a previous project to show you when your path is trying to go through an obstacle too close to a wall, or if it doesn't finish on the exit area. And then I left to see the new Superman film with a friend. After I came back from the film, I added some placeholder sound effects and music. Again, this is mostly just to sell the vibe of the game rather than be any kind of finished sound work. But knowing game jams, I guarantee you will hear some of these sounds in the final game. I had my goddaughter's confirmation graduation ceremony, which, if you're unfamiliar, is a religious rite of passage, which is very common in Finland, whether or not you subscribe to the Holy Trinity or not. So that took up my noon dev time. In the evening, I started working on detecting if the hero is in light or not. I'm not exactly sure what I want to do with this feature yet, but I would want there to be some kind of a hiding mechanic. All different types of lights need a different implementation for checking if a point is within that light. For a directional light is fairly simple. You just take the forward vector of the light, reverse it, and raycast back, and if you hit something that is marked as an obstacle, then you're in shadow. And if you don't, you're in light. I made some placeholder lights to look like industrial lights. These are point lights, and detecting if you're in a point light is fairly simple. You do a distance check with the light's range, and then you raycast back to the light to make sure that there's nothing in between you and the light. Doing distance checks in an update function is not terribly performant, but I feel this is going to be a core feature, so I feel maybe the computation is justified. A spotlight is a bit more complicated. You calculate a vector from the light to the point you're checking, and then you get the angle of the light's forward vector and the vector to the point you're checking. And you check that if the angle is lower than half of the light's view cone, then you're in the view cone. This current implementation doesn't take distance into account in any way, so a spotlight will check infinitely far if something is within its cone. But I feel in this game you will always be able to see the light, so this isn't necessary. I had a busy day of baby duty coming up the next day, so I had a snack and went to bed. This was my last day to work on the project, so I tried to hustle and get to the computer whenever I could, but I still ended up kind of crunching way into midnight. I again ran into some problems by using the template project. I had a problem with unsubscribing events. I don't know exactly what causes this, but somehow the generic singleton class gets destroyed before anything else in a scene, and so if something tries to unsubscribe when a scene is unloaded, you get a null reference exception. I had to work around this, and I just had events unsubscribed like whenever. And this is part of what I said, that LazyT had to make these decisions on game architecture, and so the generic singleton doesn't work properly if it's not scene persistent. If you want something that is like a local singleton to a scene, like I would like the score manager to be, where instead of manually resetting score between scene loads, every level simply has their own score manager, so it will always be reset when a level is loaded. But because I decided to work this way, I got errors. I hustled to implement this security camera feature, which is kind of like a guard, so that when it sees you, it instantly shoots you. I'm hoping these would be the kinds of things that you would like disable with a command prompt. I also made this sleep dart mechanic where if you approach a guard from almost directly behind, and if you get close enough, the hero will shoot a sleep dart and tranquilize the guard, and they will be out for the rest of the level. This day was kind of a blur. I just kept like doing stuff and fixing bugs whenever I could find them. I just tried to make the project run as smoothly as possible so that the next developer would have an easier time actually adding features instead of like fixing and polishing. I made tutorial levels for all the mechanics that are currently in the game. The tutorials are more to showcase the mechanics that are there, so that when you jump into the project, you know, okay, all of these things are possible, now I can add something to this. I'm hoping someone will sprinkle out the tutorials between levels instead of them being front-loaded as they are currently. Later we did a lightning round where we were allowed to fix bugs and add levels because the game is heavily level-based and there weren't a lot of levels yet. I managed to add 3 levels, 2 that used the hiding mechanic and 1 that used the sleep dart mechanic. And I tried to fix bugs that I had left in the game. As of recording this, I haven't seen what the final game is like, but you are about to see now. Okay, move. If you watched this far, thank you, I really appreciate it. My first Steam release is coming up. It's called Lilith's Game and you can wishlist it now on Steam. And every other game that I've ever made is free on itch, and I would really love it if you would play my games and give me feedback to help me develop as a game designer. Thank you.